Hey all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Robin, and today I am doing my September wrap-up slash recent reads video. Okay, so moving forward, I don't plan to do monthly wrap-ups. I would prefer to keep these kind of short, and so instead I'm going to do recent reads videos so that I can kind of talk about each book in more detail. So I'm planning to do one of those like every other week or so, depending on how much I read, because I have like 14 or 15 books here to talk about, and I can't go into a ton of detail about 15 books without this video being ridiculously long. So the way that I broke this up is first I'm just going to mention the books that I have already talked about on my channel, and then I will link the video that I talked about them down below and in one of the cards, wherever the card is. But I talked about a couple of these in my summer favorites, and then I'm just going to go through the ones that I don't have a lot to say about. So these were like my 3.5 star reads. And then I just have 4 books that I would like to talk about that I ended up really loving this month that I haven't had a chance to talk about yet. So that's how we're going to keep this relatively short. So let's get right into the wrap up. The ones that I've already talked about, I'm just going to mention really quick here. They are The Love Hypothesis by Ellie Hazelwood, Under the Whispering Door by TJ Klune, and The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane. I talked about all 3 of these in my summer favorites. I had an amazing September reading month, so these were all 5 stars. I gush about them in that video, so I will link that down below and in the cards, and if you want to hear all my thoughts, but these were all 5-star reads. They were fantastic. Unfortunately, along with all of those 5-star reads, I ended up with 7 3-star reads this month. So first up is Dark Waters by Katherine Arden. This is the 3rd book in the Small Spaces series. The first book being Small Spaces and the second book being Dead Voices. This series follows a group of elementary school kids who run into a deadly scarecrow, and the deadly scarecrow keeps kind of coming back for them. And in this 3rd book, they're trapped on an island and there's ghosts and a sea creature, and it was really good. This was my least favorite of the series so far. I think Dead Voices is my favorite, but it was still a solid read. After that, we have Lake's Edge by Lyndall Clipstone. This was a 2-star read, unfortunately. This is a gothic YA fantasy romance, and I thought that the pacing was just really, really strange in here. It had like good elements, I guess. Like the spooky elements were spooky, but I didn't like the balance between like the character development and then the writing and the pacing. We spent a lot of time on like random details and in random scenes, but then like there was no character development at all. So it was just I didn't care much about what was happening in the plot because we were spending a lot of time like describing the world and describing the setting and this garden and the fires and all of this random like description, but then like I don't remember the main character's name. So just, it didn't quite work for me, unfortunately. I was really excited about this one, but I gave it 2 stars. Then I read The Girls Are Never Gone by Sarah Glenn Marsh. This was good. I gave this 3.5 stars. It's another YA paranormal story, and you're following a podcaster who investigates haunted sites, and she goes to this house for a summer internship, I guess, and she is trying to investigate this haunting at this house, at this lake behind the house. And this one actually has really good spooky elements, and there is chronic illness rep in here for type 1 diabetes. But it was fine. It's really short. If you're looking for like a good paranormal book to add to your October TBR, this is actually a really good one. It does have lots of spooky elements. There's a female-female relationship in here. It didn't exactly leave a lasting impression on me. The last 3-star book that I have physically is The Last Legacy by Adrienne Young. This one is probably the most disappointing of the whole month. I loved the Fable duet. That duet is a 5-star duet to me, but this one was just not it, I guess. It's really short, and you're following this whole new cast of characters, and you just don't spend enough time getting to know these characters. There is so much plot like crammed into these 300 pages. Yeah, 300 pages that like I never really got to know the characters, and so I didn't necessarily care about what was happening to them because I didn't really know them. So this was just, it's a very plot driven book. I'm a character driven reader, so this one just, so it wasn't quite what I wanted, but it was still fun to be back in this world. The last 3 are ones that I don't have physically. First up was Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This was another really disappointing one. I ordered that really beautiful pink edition of Once Upon a Broken Heart, and at the time that I ordered it, I thought it was a new series, and I recently learned that it spoils the ending of the Caraval series. So I decided to pick these up on audio and try to listen through, and I didn't particularly like this book. I gave it 3 stars because it wasn't bad, but I heard this writing was really lyrical, and I wouldn't even call it lyrical. There's just lots of weird comparisons and metaphors in here. She compares everything to a color. So she's like, he kisses like midnight, and it was strange. I wasn't the biggest fan, and the main character is kind of obnoxious. She makes like really dumb mistakes over and over and over again. So I don't know. I'm going to try to listen to book 2 and see if I enjoy that one more. Otherwise, I might just try Once Upon a Broken Heart and see. Maybe I'll just do it and spoil the ending for myself. I don't know. The next one is Queen Takes Rose by Katie Robert. This is the last book in the Wicked Villain series. I read this for Becca's Bookathon, and I didn't realize until after I'd finished. I accidentally missed Sea Witch, so I'm going to go back and read Sea Witch. You don't need to read any of these in order, but this one is Sleeping Beauty. You're following Aurora and Malone, who's the equivalent of Maleficent. This one was probably my least favorite. There's a lot of references to Sabine Valley in this one, and I haven't read Sabine Valley yet, and it was fine. And then the last 3.5 star book was A Spindle Splintered by Alex E. Harrow. This one was really good. It's short. It's like 150 pages or so. It is another Sleeping Beauty retelling, actually, weirdly enough. This one, you're following a main character who is ill, and she doesn't think that she is going to live past her 21st birthday. It is, I believe, a made-up illness, as far as I could tell. I think it's like kind of based on reality, but like made up. But you're following this character who does not believe that she is going to live past her 21st birthday. So her best friend throws her this surprise 21st birthday, and while she's there, she pricks her finger on a spindle, and she finds herself falling through a bunch of worlds, and she discovers that the Sleeping Beauty trope has occurred over and over and over again in all these different realities and throughout time. I can tell that the author is going to be like, she's building up to something, and there are more books in this world, but this one was it was fine. I finished it, and I was like, oh, that was a cute story, and like, I don't think it's something I'm ever going to really think about again. Alex E. Harrow's writing is really fantastic. She also wrote The 10,000 Doors of January and The Once and Future Witches. So her writing is fantastic. The story was fun. It was a fun novella. And then this is the stack of the last couple of books that I read and really loved. First is Portrait of a Scotsman by Evie Dunmore. This is part of the League of Extraordinary Women series. This is the 3rd book. And this was actually my favorite of the entire series so far. I was surprised because I didn't know if I was going to like Hattie's story, but her dynamic with the hero was just so good, and I really loved her personal growth throughout this book. So Hattie ends up finding herself in a compromising position with this like self-made rogue, and the two of them have to enter into a marriage of convenience, or a forced marriage, I guess. She is like this really soft, kind-hearted person, and he is kind of this rough around the edges rogue. And the two of them just have this really great dynamic, and you slowly watch him fall madly in love with Hattie. But the two of them also have this like festering resentment towards each other because they were forced into this marriage that they didn't necessarily want. And they go to Scotland together, and they have to share a room and a bed. And this was just really great. I also loved the ending. I don't know if it's going to work for everyone, but there is a top-notch grovel at the end, and I love a good groveling hero. So this was really good. I loved this one. Next was 8 Perfect Hours by Leah Lewis. I do want to mention this cover makes it look like it is a Christmas romance. This is, in fact, not a holiday romance at all. This takes place between the months of March to like November. So you don't hit any holidays really in here. But this story starts with the two main characters who get stuck in a freak snowstorm in March on the highway, and they're stopped next to each other, and they develop this bond and this friendship in the 8 hours that they are stuck on the freeway. And after they go their separate ways, they find that they keep running into each other, and they develop a relationship. And this is a really, really sweet contemporary. I don't know if I would quite classify it as a romance. There is a romance in here, there is a happily ever after, but this story is also about the main character's personal growth and her dealing with the death of her best friend and kind of grieving. She is also taking care of her ill mother, and she's kind of struggling to let go of that caretaking responsibility of like move on with her own life. And so you're really following the main character's personal growth as well as her budding romance. So this was beautiful. I didn't love this one quite as much as Dear Emmy Blue just because that book hit me so hard, but this was fantastic. I absolutely adore Leah Lewis, and I will pick up anything they write. Next up is To Break a Covenant by Allison Ames. This is another YA paranormal fantasy, and in this one you are following this small town where years ago there was a mining explosion, and so they had to abandon the town, but instead of just like dispersing, they ended up moving the town just right next to the old town, and they quarantined off the old town, and no one is supposed to go in there because the mines are said to be unsafe and haunted. And you're following this group of girls who befriend a new girl who comes to town, and this new girl's father is supposed to be inspecting the mines for safety. And so her father takes this group of girls down into the mines, and when they return, none of them are quite the same. And this has an amazing female friendship. The paranormal aspects of this were awesome. The mines are legitimately terrifying, and the ending of this is super twisty. This is a really good book to add to your October TBR. It's atmospheric, it's dark, there's a lot of really good paranormal elements in here, and I really enjoyed this one. I give this one 4 stars. And last up is Summer Suns by Lee Mandello. I originally gave this book 4.5 stars, but I might be changing this one to 5. I finished this one a few days ago, and I still cannot stop thinking about it. This is an adult dark academia paranormal story, and you are following a man who has been waiting to meet his best friend down in Tennessee for the past 6 months. But right before he is set to come down to Tennessee, he finds out that his best friend has died. And so he goes down to Tennessee, and there he discovers that he has inherited not only his friend's house, his manor, as well as a bunch of friends and a degree and all of these things that he didn't know his best friend had. And so he is meeting all of these people that he never knew his best friend knew, and he is slowly uncovering this kind of dark secret that his friend had been keeping for the past 6 months. And all the while, he is being haunted by his best friend's ghost. The paranormal aspects in here are really dark and are really creepy. There are huge content warnings for suicide and blood and gore and grief and depression. There's drug abuse and alcohol abuse in here. This book is really dark and really heavy, but if you can handle the subject matter, I am obsessed with this book. The writing is so stunning. The whole like vibe and atmosphere of this book just completely pulled me in. I really felt like I was in this dark academic setting. I cannot recommend this one enough. There is a slight romance in here. It is definitely not the focus, but there is a romance in here. And this also does tackle sexuality as an adult. So the characters are in their 20s, and the main character is questioning his sexuality throughout this book. And I really liked seeing that in an adult book rather than like a younger story. I really appreciated that. This was definitely a favorite. So that is it for this wrap up recent reads. Hopefully this format worked out well and this didn't end up being ridiculously long. Like I said, I plan to do recent reads more frequently so that I have less books to talk about, to keep these videos kind of short so that I can go into all of my rambly thoughts about them. Let me know what you read in the month of September, and I will catch you all next time. Bye!